Do you ever sit there scrolling through the news wondering why we as a country are doing something like sanctioning another country or negotiating with another country or sending troops to another country? And you just wonder why? It can all seem incredibly confusing from the outside, but there's actually a really structured way that countries think about how they use their power to try to achieve what is ever deemed to be in their interests. And there's a framework for it. National security folks use it every single day. And once you see it in action, you can't unsee it. And it does an amazing job of helping us understand what countries are doing to include our own. It's called DIME. And most people focus on the M part, which we'll get to in a minute, but that's the military part. Because you think of planes and tanks and troops. But honestly, that military force is the one part of national power that gets used when everything else went sideways, when everything else failed. And so the question is, what parts of national power are we as a country using? And what parts are we just letting rust? And what are the long-term impacts going to be? All four elements together that make up DIME are diplomatic, information, military, and economic. Think of them like tools in a toolbox. Every toolbox has a hammer, sure. But you should never really use the hammer for every problem you're trying to solve. That's not why you have a toolbox. You have a toolbox to be able to use all the tools in it. Let's start with diplomatic or diplomacy. This is really where the talking should happen before shooting is ever needed. Honestly, I think of it as the tool that we should use before things get stupid. You see it happening or trying to happen right now between the United States and Iran. You see it happening between the United States and China. We see it happening all the time. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. It doesn't usually get on the front page. But it is often the cheapest and most effective tool we have. But there's a catch. It only really works if our leaders are credible in the eyes of other countries' leaders. And that's something I want you to put in the back of your head for a minute because we'll come back at the end of this video and revisit that. The next one is information. And this element of national power is what I call the invisible battlefield. Countries like Russia are flooding social media channels to pump out disinformation, sow discord. Countries like China are investing in cyber capabilities. We have our own cyber capabilities. The information domain is incredibly powerful because if you can control information people are receiving and or what they're paying attention to, then you can fundamentally shape what they believe to be true. We see it in our politics and we certainly see it on the international stage. And if you can shape people's beliefs, that is shaping power like you couldn't believe. It's the only element of national power that can work even while you're sleeping. And in 2026, I think it's one that we should pay extra attention to. The next one is the one that everyone gets, military power. It's when everything else fails. What do you have to force your will or protect your interests? And ideally, you would actually use your military power to deter the need to ever use it in the first place. It's the idea that having a big military means that no one wants to mess with you and that you can actually leverage your diplomatic skills or your informational skills and eventually your economic skills or power, I should say, to get what you want without ever having to use the military in the first place. Military power is loud, it's expensive, and it's risky. It's not one that you really want to be overly reliant on. And that's another point I want you to put in the back of your head just for a minute. And the last one is economic power. Economic power is really the quiet power. It's the ability to impose sanctions. It's the ability to negotiate trade deals that are favorable to your own country. Our entire international financial system was built after World War II to benefit the United States. And the question to ask ourselves at this moment in time is, by our actions on the international stage, are we encouraging more people to use our systems that we have a lot of control over and therefore a lot of control over the rules of that system? Or do we want to keep convincing people that our instability, our back and forth, our sometimes irrational behaviors in the international stage means that countries should be looking for their own economic systems? It's a question that each of us, I think, have to ask while we're watching the news each and every day. So here's the part of DIME that no one really talks about. It's a way to make sense of it all is to ignore countries just for a second and focus on ourselves. On an individual level, your diplomatic power is your ability to talk other people into whatever you think is a good idea or to de-escalate things. It's your ability to talk sense into people, but that ability really relies on your credibility. And that is fragile. It takes decades to build up oftentimes, but could be given up in just one decision. The next one, informational, is what people believe about you. It's not just what you say, but it's the perception that you're putting out there. And how can you shape that? Military is the one on the individual level we really never want to get to, but sometimes you do just have to get into a fight to stand your ground, to protect people you care about, perhaps. But it's there, and we all know it's there. And then finally, economic is just like the resources that you have in order to do what you want to do. Time, money, expertise are all parts of the resources that we can pull from as individuals. And that framing is important because once you understand it as an individual level, and then you look back at countries, you realize countries behave in ways that aren't all that much different than individual folks. And if you understand how it works for you as an individual, you can apply it to the news that you see of all the countries interacting in the world today. So those couple questions I asked you to put in the back of your mind for a second. This is how I want you to think about it on your own. Are we as a country and the choices that our leaders are making these elements of national power more effective or less effective? Are we feeding them or starving them? Which ones are we feeding and therefore more likely to rely on? And which ones are we wish we had, but we're letting them erode in front of our eyes? I'm more than happy to break down each one of these in a whole lot more detail in future videos, but I want to be guided by everyone watching this. So if you do me a huge favor, and if you want me to dive into any one of these 4 elements of national power, throw a comment below of which one you want me to dive into. I will read every comment that comes in, and we'll make choices as a team to figure out what content to bring you based on the feedback that you're giving. So thank you for watching, and I hope you got something out of this. So when you're watching the news and trying to make sense of this crazy world we're all living in, you at least now have one more framework to make sense of it all. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.